Part 76. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 755. There was no rest for a week in a row, and they were forced to face high-intensity pursuit and bombing at any time. Various methods were constantly emerging, including hidden poison needles, long-distance snipers, large-area cloud bombs, and incendiary bombs. If you are not careful, you may be bombarded to death by various high-tech weapons. He wanted to kill the chasing team at close range, but was sensed in advance by the Dark Witch and the Masters of the Holy Fist Palace, and quickly retreated and applied various slowing effects to him. They did not make direct contact with him at all, but used various long-range means. Constant pursuit. But even so, he managed to kill 2 groups of witches and Holy Fist Palace Masters. But then, more chasing teams appeared, and a large number of dead soldiers emerged one after another. Many were even executed prisoners. It was released deliberately in order to get close to him and explode. For a moment, it seemed that there were enemies in all directions, and during this period, what frightened Hoseman the most was not the Masters of the Holy Fist Palace and the witches of the Dark Witch Coven, but the huge number of ordinary people. They used various traps and tactics to design traps, land mines, inject highly poisonous animals in advance, hallucinogenic gas, and violently bombarded with various powerful military weapons. In this case, let alone him, even the veteran dead apostle would probably have a lot of headaches and troubles. Haseman almost ate a mouse that was injected with a highly poisonous drug. It looked like there was nothing wrong with the mouse, but the toxin delayed the onset of the disease. Death. Hoseman, Sidon was so excited that he started to fight, veins appeared on his face, and he laughed out loud, counting wildly on his chest with his hands. Tiangang Bailey. Boom. A majestic airflow was suddenly collided and dispersed as Sidon activated his secret technique. Sidon suddenly grew in size, swelled up, and swung his thick arm directly to hit Hoseman's shoulder. That kind of momentum was like a giant hammer that wanted to smash him into a pulp. Haseman hurriedly raised his arms and swept around. Secret meaning. Dual swords. 2 crisp sounds of chi-chi came out, and the knives in his hands suddenly cut out 2 transparent air blades, forming a complete circle. The upper half of the ring faced Sidon Goth and smashed down, and the lower half of the ring was in the air. The blade actually cut directly into Sidon's legs. This is the secret of the original water bird fist, the double sword. Even if Haseman is now exhausted, when he performs it, he still has a sharpness that is as sharp as a real sword. Clang. There was no time to react and change the moves, so the 2 of them traded moves at the same time. The arm smashed the air blade hard, and then hit Hoseman's shoulder. The huge impact hit him, breaking the bones with a crisp click. At the same time, Sidon's legs had no time to dodge, and were directly hit by the air blade. He tore his trousers apart, leaving 2 clear bloody cuts on his thighs. Ah! Sidon howled miserably, retreated quickly, and was held up by a subordinate master as he staggered. His body returned to normal, but the wounds on both legs were cut a finger deep, almost cutting off both legs. However, Horseman's shoulders suddenly moved, and the bones were barely reconnected, which did not affect the movement for the time being. He half knelt on the spot and looked at the remaining Quinton coldly. "You alone can't kill me," he said coldly. "What about me?" A beautiful female voice suddenly sounded from behind Hoseman. He turned back sharply and his pupils suddenly shrank. Armored vehicles were speeding along the highway one after another. The street lights on the road kept flashing across them one after another, almost forming a yellow line. Galen was sitting in an armored vehicle at the front, watching the military map formed by the intelligence gathered from various intelligence points on his laptop. The red dot and red area are still used to indicate the threat level. There were 2 people driving the car, and the one who helped Galen analyze the map was a black officer who had just been transferred. Oriman has been initially surrounded in this area. Now Master Toulon and General Quinton Sedan have passed ahead and should have arrived at the target location. Of course, in order to capture the opponent alive and successfully obtain the mask, we have been using the fatigue-heavy tactics, and trying to capture Hasseman alive now seem to be working well. They have successfully reduced Hasseman's strength to a respectable level. Approximately what level is it? It should be barely the strength of a superior, but with distractions and having to be alert to the threats all around, it should have reached its weakest level, the black officer replied in a deep voice. I haven't rested for a week, but I still have such strength. It really surprises me, Garin murmured, touching his chin. He had a hunch that this time when he came out to hunt down Hoseman and retrieve his soul guide, he would definitely meet the man behind the scenes who prompted Hoseman to tear apart his soul guide. Who in the end caused this accident? He felt a slight sense of urgency in his heart. Be careful, I have a bad feeling, Hessaz's low and weak voice came. This is a conspiracy. From the moment my soul was torn apart, I had to take action myself. I had no choice, Garin said lightly. Hessaz was silent, knowing that Garin was right. If the soul guide is not recovered, Garin will leave a fatal flaw. If he recovers it, he must come out and kill Hoseman himself. It's an either/or situation, there's no way to avoid it. Looking at the street lights passing by outside the car window, Garin slowly calmed down and began to adjust his state. Just 6 hours after Garin left the Holy Fist Palace, the Blood Alliance brazenly launched an all-round large-scale attack. A large number of vampires appeared, armed with firearms and various weapons, and fought head-on against the Holy Fist Palace and surrounding Alliance forces. In just 2 hours, a full-scale war broke out between the two sides. A large number of human vampires were killed one after another. The army launched a suppression campaign, and the number of casualties rose sharply. The senior members of the Blood Alliance mobilized at least 3-digit official members of the Blood Clan to attack all branches of the Holy Fist Palace. This also means that the Blood Tribe and the Holy Fist Palace have officially started a full-scale war. The battlefield is mainly concentrated in the United States. It is claimed that the jihad is launched by internal terrorists in the United States, and the military is doing its best to suppress it. The Dark Witch Guild also broke out into a war with the traditional witches, but what is strange is that none of the top-level dead apostle-level beings showed up. Toulon stood quietly behind Hoseman, wearing a pure white women's suit and slightly white water-blasted jeans. Her long red hair was gently tied back to form a ponytail, giving people an ordinary look without any traces of it. An amazing feeling. But such a calm temperament made Hoseman's heart pause for a second. Although he had been mentally prepared, he still felt uncertain about the threat when faced with this terrifying death apostle-level vampire who practiced Huan Fist. You really think so highly of me that even Master Toulon took action personally? Hoseman laughed dryly. With the fusion of Marshal Dam's Yinji Water Bird Fist, your boxing skills must have reached an unprecedented peak, right? It seems that you have broken through to the upper level. Toulon looked calm and stretched out his fingers to hook. It just so happens that I broke through not too long ago. Let's have a fair fight between the two of us and no one else will interfere. How about that? A fair fight? Horseman almost burst into anger. He looked at himself and saw bruises all over his body. He had just broken through the Water Bird Fist and reached the Death Apostle level. He was hunted down by all kinds of people before he stabilized. He fled for thousands of miles. Now he hasn't had any rest for a week. Just now he had a fight with Sedan, who had unleashed his potential, added injury to injury. It was considered good to have half of his strength left. Now he was fighting against a dead apostle who was in full condition, unless he was crazy. Toulon smiled slightly. Don't you agree? By the way, I'm telling you that Master Boxing Saint is heading this way. If you don't seize the opportunity, it will be too late for a fair fight. The mask is on me, don't you want it anymore? Hasseman suddenly said. He took out the strange slightly black mask directly from the tattered clothes on his body. At this moment, Hoseman suddenly looked slightly stunned, and his eyes fell directly on the mask in his hand. Not just him, but Quinton Sidon, Tulan, and the surrounding subordinate soldiers also quickly focused their attention on the strange sleepless face mask. Buzz. The mask vibrated slightly spontaneously, and the lips slowly opened wider automatically. What is this? What's going on? Hoseman felt that he could hardly hold the mask in his hand, and suddenly he grabbed it with his other hand, suppressing the shaking of the mask. It's the resonance of the mask. A series of screams instantly sounded in the darkness. Those were the screams of a large number of soldiers lying in ambush in the woods. At the same time, a clear man's voice came from the forest, and his figure suddenly appeared behind Quinton and Sidon. Mask resonance. The 12 masks are finally almost gathered. Another woman's voice sounded slowly. Unexpectedly, when Tulan was completely unconscious, a beautiful woman with a voluptuous figure walked out of the dark grass on the right side of everyone. Amidst the clicking sound of guns being aimed, Tulan, Quinton Sidon, and the subordinates of the pursuit team they brought with them, turned some of their gun heads and aimed at the two people who suddenly appeared. The operations captain's heart sank, and he looked directly at Commander Quinton, waiting for her order. These soldiers are all selected elite special forces. Even when faced with such a strange situation, they did not lose their composure at all. They suppressed their uneasiness and waited for the commander's order. Quinton instinctively felt an inexplicable dangerous aura surrounding everyone, and looked directly at Tulan, the strongest person here. Blood Alliance. Tulan instantly recognized the Scarlet Blood Alliance logo on the two men. The apparent identities of the two men were also recognized. There are not many people with such strength and such aura in the entire Blood Alliance. The only possibility is dead apostles. How come they are here? Ian's heart suddenly sank. That person is right, he is indeed here, the female dead apostle said at this time. How to solve it now? No rush, just wait. The blonde man's dead apostle smiled, seemingly not seeing the guns aimed at them all around. Galen will be here soon. Compared to the death apostle level Hoseman, who was so embarrassed, as vampire death apostles, their immortality completely made them invincible. Although Hoseman possesses death apostle level survival and combat abilities, he is still only a human being and still lacks the most powerful ability of a vampire death apostle, immortality. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 756. Boom. Thunder rolled in the night sky, and a bolt of lightning flashed across, instantly illuminating the vast grassland below into a blanket of snowy white. This grassland, located on the border of the United States and Canada, is a complete desert. Even the nearest villages and towns were moved by government troops in advance and left quickly. There is no human habitation for hundreds of kilometers. The strong wind blew, and the tufts of grass higher than a person's knees kept swaying in the wind, making a swishing sound. On the edge of the grassland, only tens of meters away from the forest, there were rolling hills. The grass above was now ablaze, burning with red flames, lighting up almost half of the sky. The flames spread with the wind and quickly burned towards the grassland in the distance. A group of people stood sparsely on the black ground burned by the flames. Hoseman was surrounded in the middle, and outside were the men and soldiers of the Holy Fist Palace. Quinton and Sidon dealt with it attentively, and Tulan glanced at the outer periphery. Outside the manpower encirclement of the Holy Fist Palace, there are two large groups of men led by a man and a woman. Each of these men is dressed in black, wearing a black scarf, and they are all vampires, and vampires with blood-red eyes. The atmosphere became more tense and tense. Tulan, you are the new dead apostle of our clan. Why did you choose to side with the Holy Fist Palace? The handsome blonde man in black robe said at this time. I just found that the Holy Fist Palace is more suitable for me to stay than the Blood Alliance. It is here that I find my true pursuit, Tulan answered seriously. She didn't lie. Only in the Holy Fist Palace could she freely practice Huan Luquan and Mi Wuquan while receiving the guidance of Garen's soul. It almost gave her a brand new pursuit of life, which was boring compared to before. A life of eating and enjoying is simply countless times more meaningful. After trying the life of the Holy Fist Palace, which allowed her to continuously improve and strengthen herself in pleasure, she would not let her return to the boring life of the Blood Alliance before. And now she is also a dead apostle, equal to the other party, and has her own right to choose. Do you really want to stand on the side of the Holy Fist Palace? The man frowned slightly. I have my pursuits and dreams here, but the Blood Alliance does not. Tulan said calmly, maybe I was forced and unwilling at first, but it's different now. What a pity. The female dead disciple shook her head slightly. At this time, there were more and more black-clothed vampires behind them. But there are also more ordinary Holy Fist Palace soldiers gathering from a distance. Groups of bombers and fighter jets continued to fly through the sky, and the sound of propellers from armed helicopters approached rapidly from far to near. Both the Blood Clan and the Holy Fist Palace are mobilizing force on a large scale. There are more and more people gathered in this small area, and they are getting stronger and stronger. Although it's a little hasty, today is the day when the myth of the Holy Fist Palace will be shattered. The female dead disciple looked up at the armed helicopter hovering in the sky, and a red light suddenly flashed in her eyes. Suddenly, a helicopter flying by suddenly spun around, circling and slamming into another helicopter beside it. Boom! The two planes collided and exploded into a ball of fire. Countless radios communicated quickly, and the instructions to retreat were quickly transmitted. The pilots of the aircraft panicked and moved away from the area. Tulan watched their actions coldly, without any intention of taking action. She had already guessed the other party's intention. They wanted to use herself and these senior officials of the Holy Fist Palace as bait, coupled with Hoseman and the mask in his hand, to seduce them. Garen came directly over and rescued him personally. Apparently they had prepared something good and were waiting for Garen. But at the same time, Tulan also has enough confidence in Garen. As long as the boxing saint comes, no difficulties can stop him from moving forward. Hoseman did not expect that things would develop to this point. Inadvertently, he seemed to be the trigger for the decisive battle between the Blood Alliance and the Holy Fist Palace. He tightly grasped the mask in his hand and tried his best to seize the time to allow his body to recover more. Unfortunately, he was overdrawn for too long and did not have enough food and water. At this time, his recovery ability was greatly reduced. He could only manage to straighten out the internal injuries and barely stop the bleeding from the external injuries. Now the mask is the only trump card to save life. He secretly felt that whether it was the Holy Fist Palace or the Blood Alliance, there were several eyes falling on the mask in his hand. It was clear that both parties were intent on seizing the mask. Swish! Suddenly there were two soft sounds, and two more figures appeared next to a male and a female dead apostle. They were Wellington and Hongyu in different clothes. One of the two was dressed in a white suit, and the other looked like a homeless man. He did not have the demeanor of a vampire death apostle at all. Meng Ji and Marianne are all here. Wellington glanced around coldly. I don't see how Galen can escape this time. His expression was cold, but his words gave people a feeling of gritted teeth. Apparently he still remembered the tragic situation when he was beaten by Garen and was unable to resist. Don't worry, Garen will never come back this time. The handsome blonde man chuckled. The Holy Fist Palace is just a flash in the pan after all, and it will be completely destroyed tonight. Don't be careless, brother. Meng Hongyu glanced at him lightly, then closed her eyes to rest. The other two people stopped talking and closed their eyes to prepare themselves. The faint auras surrounding the four dead disciples were all connected together like a vast ocean, oppressing everyone present to the point of being breathless. Tulan secretly used the Huanlu fist, signaling everyone around her to move closer to her, and then slowly moved towards the weaker direction of the vampire circle. The strange thing is that the vampires don't seem to have any intention of stopping it. Lan suddenly glanced at the mask, which was still vibrating, and suddenly understood. These vampires must have brought all the masks they obtained. They must have mastered some special skills to activate the resonance between the masks. If the masks are used as bargaining chips, they really don't have to worry about the teacher not showing up. What now? Quentin asked in a low voice in charge of Sidon. Just wait and see what happens. Everything will be fine when the teacher comes, Lan whispered. Time passed minute by minute, half an hour passed quickly, and the people of the Blood Alliance remained motionless, showing a lot of patience. At this moment, a huge shock suddenly came from the distance. It seemed like something was vibrating violently, but the vibration quickly disappeared. Here we come. Hangyu turned her head suddenly and looked towards the horizon in the distance of the grassland. Through the gaps between the hills, a large convoy of black armored vehicles was slowly approaching. The convoy stopped very far away. It was obvious that the other party knew that ordinary people could not play any role in such a fight. With the click of the car door opening and closing, a tall masked man stepped out of the first car. He also had blonde hair, but his eyes were not the blood red of the vampires, but clear dark blue. The man is wearing the martial arts uniform of the Holy Fist Palace, with a black background and white edges. There is a holy word embroidered on the right chest, and there is also a big holy word on the back. Getting off the bus with him was another little old man who looked shriveled and thin. Dressed in rags and wearing a cane, he looked as if a gust of wind could knock him down. This person was clearly an AG who had just come out of seclusion. As soon as he received the news that the Holy Fist Palace and the Blood Alliance were about to fight, he hurried over. Not only him, but also a large group of masters from the Lightless Alliance and the Dark Witch Guild. Leader Nizra is also hiding nearby, ready to lead the team. They are preparing a strong witch formation to assist in the battle. As soon as the two got out of the car, the armored vehicle quickly evacuated the place. It was obvious that they had planned not to stay on the battlefield. These armored vehicles look very strong and tough, but for the level of Death Apostles, it is very simple to kill them, especially the veteran Sidhu. As long as their human control skills are swept by their side, it is very likely that they will be killed. Into their control. If they had not temporarily attacked the people in the Holy Fist Palace, I am afraid that Quentin, Sidon, and others would have been completely controlled and committed suicide before Garen arrived. Wow! The raindrops finally fell, and together with the faint thunder from the clouds, it gave people a depressing and low feeling. The night is getting darker and darker, and the moon is also covered by thick dark clouds. Planes are no longer dispatched at this time. Fighters flying at low altitudes in such weather will undoubtedly have large bellows and will have little impact on the battle situation. Soon, a large number of human troops were ordered to evacuate. In such a battle, their bullets would have no effect on the veteran vampire dead disciples. It was also difficult to accurately locate missiles in this weather. It was more likely that they would affect their own people. It is better to evacuate your own people first and then use various methods more easily. Garen and Ag looked at the 4 dead disciples of the Blood Alliance from a distance. We also saw Lan, Quentin, and others in the encirclement, as well as the mask in the hand of Hoseman in the center. The situation is a bit complicated. How do you plan to solve it? Ag asked calmly. What the vampires want is undoubtedly an opportunity to fight me to the death. They want me to fight them willingly, and it won't happen without some means. Garen knew it well. The mask and the surrounded people are all a pawn to use to coerce me. Of course, maybe they want the mask too. He clapped his hands directly, and 2 figures quickly appeared in the darkness behind him, both men wearing white Holy Fist Palace Taoist uniforms. The 2 men carried a black sealed metal box and came behind him. With a bang, the box was opened, and inside were all the masks Garen had collected so far. The masks were stacked one after another, and they were vibrating together. The vibrations on Thursday were not very strong. Strangely, the lips of the mask opened slightly, getting wider and wider, and finally turned into a howling black hole. Even the mask Garen wore on his face was no exception. The sleepless face. The vampires must have brought all the masks they got. Including the one in Hoseman's hand, the 12 masks should have been collected today, Garen said calmly. He glanced at the potential points in his attribute column. Power 7, Agile 7, Physique 10, Intelligence 12, Potential 33,124%, Soul Limit 30. The 2 masks he just received were obtained by Tu Lan himself, providing him with a large number of potential points. At this time, he has more than 300 potential points which can improve his own attributes. But he hesitated and still didn't use it immediately. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 757. He has recently carefully distinguished his own time travel reincarnation. If the potential point is energy that can only act on the body, then condensing one's own insights to achieve the soul seed is to turn the body with the potential point to the limit into the energy of the soul and store it. This is an extremely pure cohesion, so every time it seems extremely difficult. But it is also the only way to a higher state. There are 2 key reasons for not increasing potential points immediately. If he turns on the 5th star and reaches his highest limit attribute, he will have to continue to consume a lot of vitality, and the vitality of the killing hand is simply not enough. When the vitality is damaged, he can replenish his physique through potential points to make up for it. Effect. Another point is that once he activates the 5th star, no matter how high his basic physical quality is, he can only reach the ultimate average quality of 30 points. It cannot be upgraded, so it is better to keep it as a restorative resource. With a calculation in his mind, he raised his eyes and looked at the Death Apostle opposite. Let's go and see the most powerful people in the Blood Alliance. AG grinned. This can be regarded as the pinnacle meeting of the century. He followed quickly. The evening wind blew the heavy rain down harder and harder, and the raindrops were like sloping lines, constantly hitting everyone. But no one dared to speak loudly at this time. Garen and AG got closer and closer, and finally stood on a hill, watching the Death Apostles from a high position. This is a look down on them, but none of the dead apostles are displeased. You must know that they usually look down on others, but now it is Garen looking down on them. These arrogant vampires actually have no dissatisfaction. You meant, but his expressions gradually calmed down and he seemed to be more calm. Unknowingly, the vampires let go of the encirclement, and the men from the Holy Fist Palace quickly withdrew and gathered behind Garen and AG. At Galen's signal, even Tu Lan asked him to evacuate here. Soon, in the heavy rain, only the 4 Death Apostles were left confronting Garen AG. The only person still watching the game was Hoseman, who was holding a mask. He was caught between 2 invisible auras, his body stiffened, and the mask in his hand kept vibrating, as if trying to break free from his restraints. The 12 masks are all here, Meng Ji, one of the dead apostles, said. As expected, you came here for the mask. He stared intently at Garen's eyes on the hill, showing no intention of retreating. Garen's expression was indifferent, not much moved by the mask he mentioned. Try all your efforts to lure me here, and use whatever means you have. Snapped. He took a step forward. Countless shadows suddenly flew out from the solace of his feet, like countless black tentacles and tails, spreading down the hills and instantly covering the entire area where all the dead disciples were standing. The wild wind and rain were constantly being thrown around by the huge black shadow. The shadow was swaying like a tail, giving people an extremely monstrous feeling. Buzz. Suddenly, Brother Meng, one of the dead apostles, took a step slowly, and the ground between the 4 of them began to shake slowly. The earth cracked, cracks separated, and scarlet blood slowly gushes out from the ground, turning into large and small blood pools and rivers. Amid the violent vibrations, a blood-red long knife slowly rose from the plasma. The long knife is more than 2 meters long. There is a spherical blood eye pattern in the middle of the handle and the blade. The blade is densely covered with thin black threads, and the thin threads weave pure black roses on the blade. Meng Ge smiled slightly and reached out to grab the handle of the knife. At this moment, the other 3 dead apostles suddenly turned into 3 streaks of red liquid, which gathered around the red knife in his hand, turning into a ring of 3 red light spots, slowly rotating around the blade. The ultimate holy law. The red light of heaven. Meng Ge suddenly raised the red knife, the tip of the knife pointing to the sky. Boom! There was a loud thunder, and a crimson thunderbolt suddenly fell from the sky, striking hard on the hill where Garen and Ag were standing. A violent red light shone, and for a moment nothing could be seen clearly. Even Galleon didn't expect this attack to come from above. Countless red thunder and lightning suddenly enveloped Garen, like countless extremely sharp arrows piercing his skin. The AG next to him was pushed away by him immediately. Tisk tisk tisk. Suddenly, a pale ring suddenly opened around Garen. The ring instantly broke through the red thunder and lightning, and was surrounded by black shadows, directly piercing through the surrounding thunder and lightning. The thunder and lightning dissipated, and Garen in the middle was unscathed. He just stretched out his left hand, with nearly transparent air vortices swirling in his hand. It was a special technique formed by the convergence of high-speed vibration and vigor. This is a secret martial art that is close to godlike. The secret of the original water bird fist. Double swords. They are both double swords, but the effects achieved by Garen and Hoseman are extremely different. The red light of the sky. It finally looks decent. Garen flicked it lightly, and the cyclone in his right hand suddenly flew out, expanded rapidly in mid-air, grew bigger and bigger, and turned into several sharp air blades at an extremely fast speed. Clang! The air blade was knocked away by Meng Ge directly wielding the red knife. He stepped forward, jumped up out of the air, and rushed directly towards Garen, his body almost flying close to the ground. Surprisingly, although Brother Meng was blocked in his special move, he didn't show any surprise at all. His body turned into a red line, and in an instant, a red lightning appeared in front of Garen. The tip of the knife was pointed forward, aimed at Garen's abdomen, and a little dark red liquid-like flame ignited on the blade. Garen stretched out his right hand and was about to meet it steadily, but suddenly felt a crisis instinctively. Knowing that he couldn't handle it with one hand, he grabbed it with his left hand in an instant like lightning. First star. Bang! In the dull loud noise, a concussive ripple formed by a circle of rain spread out with force, shocking Hoseman, who was hiding on the side and spurting a mouthful of blood. He flew out and hit a hill hard. Sink directly into the ground. The mask in his hand also flew out of his hand, flying straight towards the box where Garen placed the mask. During the fight between Garan and Meng Ge had no expression on his face. With the red knife in his hand, his speed, strength, and combat awareness seemed to have increased several times, and even his physical recovery had reached a terrifying level. It was actually possible to reach this point in the area suppressed by Lungeing's spirit. The two of them fought hand to hand, and he waved the red knife in his hand to draw bloody lines. Galleon, who actually activated the first star at once, was evenly matched. During the fight between the two, air waves rolled, and thunder and vibrations were constantly heard. If there were ordinary people around, the sound of thunder alone could turn people into idiots. Faintly, Garen gained the upper hand again. After all, his power was much stronger than his opponent. After turning on the first star, it had reached a height of 14 points, which was also a terrifying power level for the Death Apostles. Boom! Brother Meng was severely beaten and flew away. His face turned pale and his chest was slightly sunken. It was obvious that he was punched in the chest. In mid-air, he suddenly reached out and crushed a red ball of light on the blade. With a pop, the light ball exploded and turned into countless red light spots that converged on his body. At this moment, his whole body suddenly glowed with red light. It was not a real halo, but the skin around him turned into a skinned corpse, bloody, reflecting the light from the blade, far away. Looking at it, it was as if his whole body was glowing with red. The final holy weapon summoned by the 4 dead disciples, the red light of the sky, is not only powerful in comprehensively improving physical fitness, but more powerful is that this long sword holy weapon can convert blood essence and supply to the sword holder, instantly turning it into a very strange attack power. At the moment when the red light ball shattered, a dark golden light spot lit up on Meng Ji's blade. The light spot was only the size of a thumb. It looked inconspicuous, but it gave people a feeling of extreme danger. With a bang, he landed on a hill, stepped on the ground with his legs, flew out again, and rushed towards Garen. While moving at high speed, Garen was not as fast as him, and he was still in place and had just straightened up from the pit. Facing the knife head-on, the tip of the knife was close to Garen's face in an instant, and it actually wanted to stab him through the head. Second star Garen suddenly clasped his hands together and clamped them towards the blade. At this moment, his head suddenly hurt, and an extremely terrifying mental shock surged from behind. As soon as the impact appeared, it instantly appeared in his mind, as if the attack was bound to hit as soon as it appeared. This familiar feeling, an unprecedented sense of crisis suddenly hit his heart, but Garen didn't look moved at all. Since he knew there was an ambush, how could he rush over without any preparation? Finally out almost the moment he was hit by the mental shock, Garen's eyes widened instantly, and a touch of gold flashed across his pupils. Holy Phoenix! A loud bird song rang out, rushing towards a shadow behind him. The Supreme Holy Child. With a clear whistle, a slender girl's figure instantly flew out of the shadows and landed not far away. She was still wearing a jet black short skirt and black stockings. Her long black hair was flying, and her face was as fair as jade. People have a strange and calm feeling. The Holy Phoenix's spirit struck in front of her, but was suddenly blocked by an invisible barrier. The two clashed violently, causing strong airflow fluctuations. Long time no see. Garen. Nadia opened her right hand, and a huge and slender long knife appeared in her hand. The huge knife was stained with bright red blood at some point, as if it had just experienced countless killings. At this moment, a dark golden light flashed away. Garen's pupils shrank instantly, and the dark golden color from Meng Ji's blade in front of him flew out in an instant, stabbing him hard between the eyebrows. This is not the power of this world, hide quickly, Hesaz's voice sounded anxiously in his ears, but it was already too late. Garen watched helplessly as the dark golden color flew towards him and hit him hard between the eyebrows. The only thing he could do was to muster up all the strength in his body, and the terrifying aura of the 5th star suddenly burst out. There was no sound, and a circle of dark 9-headed dragon shadows exploded. With Galen as the center, large areas of dragon shadows surged with energy. Meng Ji's whole body seemed to be hit by a giant truck, and flew backwards like a cannonball. Countless dragon shadows roared madly and silently, occupying an area of hundreds of meters almost instantly under the heavy rainy night sky. Nadia smiled and looked at the dragon shadows in the sky without making any movement. Her violent aura blew her long hair to the right. She gently stretched out her hand, as if she wanted to touch the dragon shadow flying by, with a hint of nostalgia in her eyes. Only I, as the 9-headed Dragon King, am the one who best understands the Dragon King's will. Looking at the black shadows in the sky, a slight smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Garen, you're done. At this moment, the ground beneath her feet suddenly bulged, and an unimaginable suction force came out of thin air, firmly fixing Nadia on her body. A giant grey-black hand with a diameter of more than 10 meters suddenly rushed out from the ground and aimed at Nadia. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 758. Is this, The smile on Nadia's face froze, and she wanted to jump up, but she couldn't move her body at all. Bang! The giant hand held her tightly, and there was a crisp sound. A large amount of water and soil splashed, and for a while, nothing could be seen clearly. In the heavy rain, on the black ash grass on the other side, Garen stood up again from the chaotic dragon shadow that exploded. A bloody hole the size of a thumb appeared between his eyebrows, and traces of blood were flowing out from it. Garen reached out and touched the wound between his eyebrows, then licked his dry lips. Nadia, you are indeed the one who can tear apart the tether of my soul. The one who set up this ambush. Amidst the huge rumbling vibrations, the huge and ferocious body of the Buddha Mother slowly arched up from the earth. This is a giant that is hundreds of meters tall. From a distance, it looks like a black mud monster with 3 heads and 6 arms, like the divine general Neza in Chinese mythology. The 3 heads respectively showed 3 emotions of joy, anger, and sorrow, and the 6 arms held 6 different weapons: water bottles, long sticks, daggers, ribbons, battle axes, and rings. The mouth of the water bottle was now facing Nadia's position, releasing a huge suction force like a black hole. This is also the fundamental reason why Nadia is fixed at a distance and unable to move. Buddha Mother, this terrifying killing machine originating from an unknown civilization, even Garen never really had a head-on collision with him. At that time, he was frightened by Garen's mysterious evil phoenix soaring and mistakenly thought it was the holy phoenix mantra. Only then took the initiative to surrender. In fact, even Garen has never seen the power of the real Buddha Mother clearly. The giant clay giant hundreds of meters high stood under the thunderstorm night sky, with streaks of lightning flashing across its head and thunder rolling, like a strange demon in the dark night, which was extremely terrifying. At this time, the Buddha's hand clenched tightly, suppressing Nadia in the center. The weapon ribbon originally held by this palm automatically floated around and acted as a tool for automatic protection. Garen was standing on the right shoulder of the Buddha Mother, quietly overlooking everything in the heavy rain below. The vampire dead apostles were nothing to him. Even if Brother Meng gathered the power of the other 3 dead apostles, he could only barely equal the Pale and had little impact on him. Maybe he was careless in the first star. But if the 5th star is in its prime now, no one can stop him, not even with one punch. Nadia, how did you come to this world? Garen's eyes moved to the Buddha's clenched palm. Ouch! With a scoff, the Buddha Mother howled miserably, and a large hole was suddenly penetrated in the back of her palm. A black shadow flew out from it, floating quietly in mid-air, exactly the same height as Galleon's. The black shadow stopped moving and revealed its face. It was Nadia, who had just been attacked by the Buddha Mother. Her face was even paler at this moment, and a trace of blood was faintly flowing down her fair right arm. You can actually hurt me. Nadia licked her lips. He is not a projection now, but his real body. Looking at the huge body of the Buddha Mother, a flash of surprise flashed in her eyes. I really don't know where you found this old antique, and it's still usable. Boom! Thunder and lightning flashed, and white light illuminated the 2 of them instantly. The Death Apostles below dispersed again and returned to their original individual modes, looking extremely weak at Garen and Nadia above. He cautiously retreated to a place that was barely safe. Looking at the huge Buddha Mother in the open space, several people were speechless and felt a sense of powerlessness in their hearts. Is this the real trump card of the Holy Fist Palace? I suffered a big loss this time, the only female dead apostle murmured in a low voice, staring at the huge shadow giant, suddenly feeling like watching a Transformers movie. Even the state of the final holy law cannot kill him. This Garen can no longer be regarded as a human being. Hong Yu said in a low voice, looking extremely weak. Just now, all the blood and essence of the 3 dead disciples were used to provide the final saint. Fa's consumables were supplied to Meng Ge in the battle, but even so, they were still knocked away by Garen. With this kind of power, although they guessed from the beginning that they would not be the opponent's opponent together, Such a result still made several the dead apostles all looked ugly. What should we do now? Where did that woman come from? Wellington asked unwillingly. Among the people present, he was the only one who hated Galen. Don't worry about these. We still have the last card. Looking at the huge Buddha mother, Meng Ge whispered. In this plan, the person agreed with us on the details. If this card has no effect, then what are you afraid of? We can't defeat him, and he can't kill us. As long as the masks can't be gathered together, the masks will not be born, the female death disciple interrupted him. As the 4 dead disciples who had lived for at least 1,000 years, they were only shocked when faced with the huge Buddha mother, and then immediately returned to their original state. Their long lifespans made them no longer uncomfortable in the face of shock. How are you doing now? Brother Meng looked at the other people. Where are the people we brought? I don't know, I think it's time for us to retreat, Hangyu whispered. Retreat? He. Following the words, a trembling figure appeared behind them and stopped them quietly. It was Ag. Tu Lan was standing quietly next to him. Tu Ian's hands and fingers were dripping with blood. The blood didn't seem to be human, but more like a vampire. Ag, what do you want to do? The one who spoke was still Brother Meng. He was the most mysterious death apostle of the secret party who appeared at the end. He seemed to be the strongest, and he could actually speak on behalf of the other 3 death apostles. There are 3 of us, and you only have 2 death apostles. Do you want to keep us? He said in a low voice. There was a loud bang, and violent earth vibrations were heard in the battle not far away. It was obvious that Garen and the woman had completely fired up. If it were the normal heyday, I might not be able to keep you, but now, a trace of hatred appeared in Ag's eyes. Let's settle the grudges from back then today. Boom. He hit his crutches, and the ground suddenly collapsed, revealing a huge hemispherical depression. His whole body flew up in an instant, rushing towards the 4 dead apostles, and his body became translucent and elusive. Tu Lan also took action with him at the same time, raised his hand and pointed, and a transparent liquid like water suddenly flew out from his body, turning into spikes and flying towards the 4 people. The 4 dead apostles dispersed and were about to escape separately, but immediately purple mist rose from the ground around them. The purple mist quickly condensed into purple walls, completely covering the group of people in the woods. The purple light film of the Dark Witch Meng Ge's eyes changed slightly, as if he didn't expect that the Aluminum Alliance would gather all the people here in such a short time. Ignore the Blood Alliance attacks elsewhere. It seems that they are trying their best to keep these 4 dead disciples here. Is it useful? The tension in his eyes immediately dissipated. You paid such a high price just to kill us once. Dead apostles cannot be killed. This is a chasm that cannot be broken through no matter what. Therefore, even if the 4 dead disciples were weak, they were still confident. They just looked at Ag and Tu Lan with sarcastic eyes. Who said I'm just going to kill you once? The hatred and joy in Ag's eyes became even more obvious. He raised his chin and looked at this and the 4 dead apostles with a crazy look that he had never seen before. Seal, he roared violently. In an instant, several streaks of purple mist surged out from behind him like tails. Strangely, the purple mist was actually filled with traces of light gold. A deep knife mark appeared on the chest of the Buddha's huge body. It staggered back a few steps and its legs sank deeply into the ground, like a giant trapped in a swamp. Garen stood on the giant's shoulders and looked quietly at Nadia floating in the air opposite. The heavy rain in the sky became more and more intensive. The raindrops hit the 2 people, but there was no appearance of touching the entity. There was no splash, as if the 2 were just 2 illusory shadows. Countless eyes gathered here through various instruments, and one after another, either shocked or incredulous, fell on the 2 people. Such a battle, in the eyes of outsiders, is no longer a human battle, but has entered the level of legend and myth. Now Garen is worthy of the title of the strongest holy fist in mankind. The other person standing opposite him was as terrifying and oppressive as a boundless black cloud. The battle between the two is constantly fed back to various secret high-level officials around the world through various collection instruments. This is a battle that will decide the fate of the world. This planet is already rejecting you for your secret cultivation method. Nadia shook the giant knife in her hand casually. You were not supposed to be here in the first place. You know quite a lot. Garen remained calm. The fifth star state has not been released. Now he is only relying on the power of the Buddha Mother to fight against Nadia. Only the explosion at that moment reached the fifth star. When I see you, I can't help but think of the old me. Nadia gently brushed her long hair, showing a nostalgic look. Actually, I've always wanted to kill you so much, mostly because you defeated me several times and wanted to regain face. It's really boring to think about it. Haven't void creatures and void stalkers always been opposite fates? This is the true spiritual oath we made in front of the Mother River, Garen said lightly. Yes, we are destined to be enemies. So when I see a stalker with potential to grow, I can't help but kill it. Nadia smiled casually. But when I think about it, it's really a meaningless battle. There was a look of loneliness on her face. For more than 10,000 years, I have been wandering in the void, but I have no idea what I am doing. I have been fighting meaningless battles and killing stalkers one after another. Garen looked at the other party's unfaithful face and didn't know what to say for a moment. So far, he has only lived a fraction of what others might have lived. He cannot understand, nor does he want to understand, such a life that is so close to being dead. What do you mean by saying so much? He glanced at the rising purple light film from the corner of his eye and knew that the Lightless Alliance had succeeded and that the dead apostles were doomed. Your plan was successfully completed. You called him a death apostle, right? Nadia didn't take it seriously and asked with a smile. Since you have come to this planet, you must leave traces of your existence. Isn't it? Garen replied calmly. It is true that the dead apostles cannot be killed, but I can make them sleep and comatose forever. The rain poured down harder and harder. The two of them were silent for a while. In fact, there was no deep hatred between them. After fighting each other for so long, both Garen and Nadia truly recognized each other's strength. Garen was able to defeat and survive the increasingly powerful projections time and time again, and became stronger and stronger each time. Just like Nadia herself, she had the blood will of the nine-headed dragon. Unknowingly, she seemed to see now that I have reached another self, I am embarking on a path that I have never experienced before. I failed in the past, Nadia said, then what will it be like for you to be on the opposite side of me? I'm really looking forward to it. The evil sky dominates the world. She raised her giant sword and laid it flat in front of her. The slender silver giant sword slowly twisted, and black dragon shadows appeared around the blade, making harsh roars and howls. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 759. This time, if you can still beat me, the grudge between us will be wiped out. Nadia looked at Garen not far away. The fight between the two parties changed from casual at the beginning to the suffocation caused by the inability to come. Helpless, then to the final appreciation and admiration, to the current recognition of the same qualifications as the nine-headed dragon overlord. Suddenly, she didn't want to kill Garen anymore. With the same nine-headed dragon's will, how far can Garen go? Garen looked at the other party and could vaguely feel the subtle changes in her. If Nadia accidentally discovered his bloodline at the beginning, she decided to rush to take back the will of the nine-headed dragon and kill him casually. Now, after failing to do so many times, she seems to have changed her mind. Come on. Let me see how strong your body is. Garen's body suddenly sank into the Buddha's shoulders. Following the automatically opened gap in the soil, he came directly to the core control center of the Buddha. The moment he sat down on the seat, the entire Buddha Mother shook with a bang, and a faint hint of gold appeared all over her body. The figure that was originally hundreds of meters high now actually became even bigger again. A large amount of soil flew up from the ground and condensed on it, making his body even more gigantic. "Come on, win or lose." Galen's voice rumbled like thunder from the three heads of the Buddha Mother. For a moment, it seemed as if the entire body of the Buddha Mother was the incarnation of Garen. The two merged into one, and the golden color of the Holy Phoenix Sutra merged with her body, making her even more powerful and majestic than when she was in the underground garden. Click. A flash of lightning flashed. Nadia's long knife also moved instantly. Under the night sky, it was hard to tell whether it was thunder and lightning or the light of the sword. In just an instant, the giant long knife suddenly landed in the middle of the Buddha's chest. The blade seemed to extend to an infinite length all of a sudden, causing the Buddha Mother's body to light up with a white light-like crack from top to bottom. Bang! A huge long stick came down with a crash, knocking Nadia away hard. One of the Buddha's arms holds the long stick tightly, and the power it explodes cannot even be matched by Galleons. With a low roar, Buddha Mother's huge body rose into the air and chased after Nadia. Her 6 arms held various weapons and blasted Nadia fiercely at the same time. Clang! The huge sword exploded with light and turned into a huge silver sword, which collided with 6 weapons in turn. Buddha Mother and Nadia actually fought out of thin air in mid-air, with 3 heads and 6 arms turning like wheels, and Nadia's giant sword also went crazy. Fierce. What's even weirder is that the wounds on the Buddha Mother's body that were injured by the fierce sky tyrants also healed quickly in the fusion of the soil that kept flying up from the ground, as if they were not injured. Garen is in the center, and the Buddha she controls is like a top-secret martial arts master. Various attacks, grasps, points, punches, holds, collisions, and other martial arts methods are used smoothly and continuously like a real martial arts master. Buddha Mother's 6 weapons with different functions are simply an invincible war machine with no flaws. After a long time, the huge Buddha Mother and Nadia had completely flown away from the original battlefield and landed over an unknown forest somewhere, falling hard. As if by extreme coincidence, Hasaman's fleeing figure happened to appear below. Seeing the huge shadow falling from the sky, he raised his head and roared in despair. Boom! A large number of trees were crushed, and a huge circular flat area appeared for 2 people to stand on. Hasaman has completely disappeared and turned into minced flesh and blood. A black energy silently overflowed from the feet of the Buddha Mother and penetrated into the huge body of the Buddha Mother. Nadia was covered in blood and looked seriously injured. The huge body of the Buddha Mother was also covered with scars, 2 arms were broken, and 1 head was missing. There is a large gap in the waist half, which is rapidly absorbing the soil and trees on the ground to replenish the body. Roar! Mother Buddha instinctively roared crazily. The remaining 2 heads lowered and roared like hurricanes. The violent wind pressure instantly blew out a comet-shaped crater in the grassland where Nadia was on the ground. Facing the gigantic Buddha Mother, Nadia raised her sword again. At this moment, her eyes lit up. Large shadows gathered behind her and turned into a huge shadow 9-headed dragon. At the same time, as if in resonance, Garen, who was sitting in the middle of the Buddha Mother, also had a black light in his eyes. Countless shadows like black oil spread out from under her body. These shadows quickly escaped from the huge body of the Buddha Mother and turned into the shadow of an equally large 9-headed dragon. This is pure courage, and it is also a battle originating from the will of the 9-headed dragon. It has nothing to do with the body and is only connected to the will. Dragon roar. Almost at the same time, Nadia and Garen simultaneously chose the core talent that originated from the deep will of the 9-headed dragon bloodline. The 2 terrifying 9-headed dragon shadows, which were as large as 1,000 meters, raised their heads and roared toward each other. Roar. Buzz. The roar turned into a pure buzz later. The invisible shockwave centered on the two people and instantly spread to the surrounding area of thousands of meters. At this moment, all living creatures were completely destroyed by the huge mental shock. The giant python in the forest instantly fell from the branch without making any sound. The jungle leopard on the ground ran a few steps, fell to the ground, and could not get up again. The black eagle, a flying bird in the sky, stiffened instantly and fell straight down, shattering into pieces. The moment the roar passed by, the large green grass and trees seemed to be stained with a layer of gray, and a lifeless twilight appeared completely. In the invisible and terrifying roar, the Buddha mother instantly disintegrated. It shattered into countless fragments and scattered. One of the core fragments suddenly cracked, and a black figure rushed out from it, and it was Garen. The muscles all over his body bulged horribly, forming shoulder-like bulges on his shoulders as if they were armored. His body was several times taller than the average person, and his whole body exuded a huge aura like a giant beast. Falling from a high altitude, Garen stretched out his right arm and pressed down hard. Bang! Amidst the dull loud noise. It was like the huge arm of a black python colliding with a huge silver-white sword. Garen's expression remained unchanged, and his left hand suddenly made a soft sound like a flying bird, which actually brought up a warm and gentle breeze, and there was a clear sound like a wind chime in the wind. The final secret of Water Bird Fist, Evil Phoenix Soaring, was instantly used by him with one hand. Garen's left hand seemed to turn into a huge flying bird and phoenix, vibrating its wings and rushing towards Nadia with huge terrifying power and penetration. Nadia raised her right knee at the same time and faced Garen's left hand. Another golden light flashed. A circle of black shadow suddenly exploded between the two of them. Two huge shadow nine-headed dragons entangled together, biting and killing each other. In the center of the shadow are Garen and Nadia. Bang! Nadia was knocked out dozens of meters, smashed a large number of trees, and finally plunged into a mountain wall. A large amount of rocks rolled down, almost completely burying her. That's absolute power. Garen stood there, his body as huge and terrifying as a demon. The mask on his face has been completely broken, revealing the face underneath, which is weird. His forehead was now covered with golden lines, like golden blood vessels, looking extremely ferocious. The Holy Phoenix Sutra state can fully explode one's spiritual potential in a short period of time. When gathered in the spirit, it has an extremely powerful killing effect. Garen, who was in the fifth star state, had also reached the peak of his body at this time. The original soul defects were also made up. What surprised him was that the magic book, which had been silent in the spiritual sea and was still in the final step, started to sprout after absorbing the soul guide of Hoseman's Dachan. Once it sprouts, it is the moment when he truly becomes the soul seed. Hesaz, did you see it? The second seed is finally completed. Garen looked in the direction of Nadia and murmured in a low voice. The strange thing is that Hesaz didn't respond at all. Garen suddenly felt something was wrong. Hesaz, he called again. There was no movement. An ominous premonition suddenly came to my mind. Drink. A black light flashed in front of his eyes, and Nadia appeared in front of him instantly, slashing with a sword. Pressing down the blade with a clang, Garen grabbed her head with his other hand. At this moment, the dragon shadow behind Nadia bit down on Garen's dragon shadow. Garen groaned and took a few steps back, feeling sharp pain like sharp spikes in his mind. After regaining his balance, Garen called Hesaz softly again, but there was no response. Standing next to a broken tree pile, he suddenly lost the desire to fight. I didn't expect you to dissipate in the end. There was no sadness in his heart, but the same loneliness as in the totem world. He was alone again. Facing Nadia, he had completely determined his victory. There's no need to fight anymore, he suddenly said. Nadia was also standing in the woods, covered in blood and breathing rapidly. You won. She simply sat down on a tree stump and raised her head. Don't want to fight. This body of yours is the fundamental reason for your coming, Garen said lightly. This is not your body. If it is not her true body, she cannot be resurrected and she only has one life. It's just a bit stronger than projection, that's all. Did you see it? Nadia smiled. If you don't want to fight, then don't fight. That companion of yours has disappeared? Ha ha ha, you can feel it, the emptiness that belongs to us. Is this the way you have been living for tens of thousands of years? Garen asked in a low voice, as his body slowly began to return to its normal height and shape. The victory was decided, and the two of them seemed like good friends. They had no intention of continuing to fight, and actually stood together and started chatting. Repeat again and again, cycle again and again. I have long been used to it, Nadia said with a smile. At this time, blood began to slowly flow from her facial features and 7 orifices, which was obviously the onset of internal injuries. First, there was a battle with the Mother of Buddha. Under the control of Garen, the power of the Mother of Buddha was equivalent to an enhanced version of the large galleon. The power was terrifying. Then she fought against the body of the 5th star of Garen. The body that Nadia descended on, the body can no longer bear any more injuries and is now on the verge of collapse. You win again this time. Nadia looked up at the sky. You have to be careful. The golden secret martial arts you practice will cause the planet to repel you. It is almost impossible for you to resist now. Don't let yourself enter the void at will, the war between warlocks and the void will break out again. As she sat there, her voice gradually became quieter. Her words became smaller and weaker, and finally died completely. With a bang, the giant knife shattered into pieces, turning into countless tiny silver-white light spots that gradually dissipated in the air. Garen suddenly had a feeling that maybe it was time to leave again. The strong feeling of rejection became more and more powerful. Counting the time, when the soul seeds condensed, it was the time when he completely left this world. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 760. The heavy rain was falling, as if it were pouring down, and it was almost impossible to see the scenery even a few meters away. In a dilapidated forest, the trees were broken, and the leaves mixed with the grass were slowly dyed purple. In the middle of the woods, a large cloud of purple mist directly enveloped an area tens of meters in radius. AG and Tu Lan stood side by side in front of Ziwu, quietly watching the rolling fog inside. A stream of purple liquid flowed out from under their feet, flowing straight into a large cloud of purple mist. As the purple stream flowed by, their faces became slightly pale. How is it? Tu Lan asked in a low voice. AG's entire body was soaked by the heavy rain. The rainwater flowed down his hair and face, completely soaking all his clothes. However, he didn't seem to care. He just stared at the rolling purple mist in front of him. We have collected various targeted poison gases for so long, and the essence and blood of our 2 death apostles have melted into suppressive power. They should be in a coma now. 128 kinds of poisons and hallucinogenic drugs targeted at vampires. Even I can't escape in a short time. Our witch formation should be able to complete it successfully. Tu Lan nodded. The reason why she asked was just to be more sure about the success or failure of this plan. I can't believe that I was originally a member of the Wellington family, but now I want to attack the patriarch of my family, she sighed. There is an old saying in the East, water flows to lower places and people go to higher places. The old ones should be eliminated. This is the metabolism of natural renewal, AG said matter-of-factly. Speaking of which, are you interested in serving as the patriarch of our Lightless Alliance? So far, the only 3 elders of our Lightless Alliance are me, Garen, and Nisur. Elder, Tu Lan thought for a moment. Judging from the fight with the Death Apostles just now, AG is worthy of his title of Death Apostle level wizard. His methods are weird and diverse. He actively rushes forward to fight in close quarters, and then deliberately induces the Death Apostles to disperse their formation, causing the purple mist to instantly divide the four areas. People. Death Apostle level wizards do have many more methods than vampires. Although they do not have the characteristics of absolute immortality, these various methods that are difficult to guard against are really troublesome. Tu Lan was thinking and measuring, and on the black ash grassland that had long been silent on the other side, there were waves of soft footsteps slowly coming. In the pouring rain, the footsteps were almost inaudible, but AG and Tu Lan were both top players in the world, so they naturally judged the direction immediately and looked up to where the person was. In the heavy rain, which was like a transparent curtain, a familiar figure was slowly walking out. He has one-eyed blonde hair and a handsome face. His clothes on his upper body were completely torn, revealing the outline of his strong muscles. He was only wearing a pair of black trousers on his lower body. Galen, AG looked happy. You win. Not only him, but Tu Lan beside him also showed a hint of joy at this time. Garen's appearance clearly showed that he had won the battle with the mysterious woman just now. How are you doing here? Garen glanced at the purple mist and frowned slightly when he felt a large amount of poisonous mist rolling inside. The top-grade psychedelic poisonous mist I concocted, those four guys should have fainted now, and their recovery ability has definitely been greatly curbed, AG said confidently. This purple mist not only has a highly poisonous effect, but it is also the combined power of Nisra and her hundreds of witches. It has a protective effect of cutting off the air. They will never escape. Garen nodded and said no more. AG and Tu Lan wanted to ask him about the mysterious woman, but they didn't know how to ask. Garen just waited quietly for the purple mist's time to end. The combination of the Blood Alliance and Nadia was also one of his guesses. This was the worst guess, but he was still prepared for it, and the results showed that this was not a useless effort. The Blood Alliance has made all the stops. Even mysterious strong men who don't know the details are willing to form alliances at will. It is conceivable that it has reached the point where they are desperate. Where's Bai? He asked in a low voice. That's a good old man. Don't worry about him. As long as we don't kill the Death Apostles, he won't take the initiative. He should be recuperating in Australia now, AG replied. He has contacted me directly. The matter of the Blood Alliance has nothing to do with him. It has nothing to do with it. It's probably these guys from the Blood Alliance who broke his heart. He smiled lowly. Let's end it as soon as possible, Garen sighed, suddenly feeling a little bored. Fighting back and forth with the vampires was actually meaningless. In his eyes, the vampires are just backward natives of this world, vulnerable to a single blow. However, recalling the previous situation, Garen cheered up a little and remained vigilant. After all, Nadia also used the same consensus as him to hide secret methods in the attacks of the vampire dead disciples. The dead disciple Meng Ji, whom he despised, suddenly used a method that he could not master during the interval between attacks. The method was used to hurt him in a sneak attack. Then Nadia almost succeeded in a sneak attack. If it hadn't been for the Buddha Mother to buffer his injuries, Garen would have been instantly killed at that moment. The flaw in his soul coupled with the critical injuries between his eyebrows due to a surprise attack, without the Buddha Mother, his success might really be a failure. Glancing at the purple mist, Garen gently raised his hand, and the shadow behind him suddenly lengthened, turning into a wisp of black energy and suddenly merged into the purple mist. I'll speed up the process. The black energy flowing into the purple mist seemed to instantly add huge vitality to the purple mist. Garen's black energy is actually to maintain the vitality of the killing hand cultivated by Hesas. He releases the vitality mixed energy of this killing hand and joins the purple mist, using the witchcraft formation transformation of Nasira and others. It became a huge amount of vitality. In just an instant, the purple billowing mist became much denser. Seeing such a drastic change, Agee's pupils shrank slightly and then quickly covered them up. Tu Lan glanced at him calmly from the side, not sure if she noticed his expression. Once the 4 dead disciples of the Blood Clan are sealed and comatose, the entire Blood Alliance will have nothing to fear. The strongest force in the world will become the Lightless Alliance. At that time, power will be fought for and controlled. With the addition of Garen, Zaiwu finally quickly accelerated the process. Under the dumbfounded gazes of Agee and Tu Lan, the witch formation that was originally expected to last for more than half an hour actually started gradually in just over 20 seconds. Dissipate. At the core of the purple mist is a ball of pale white mist that is constantly rolling. After the purple mist dissipates, this mist gradually falls to the ground. Bang! The white fog balloon exploded and disappeared without a trace in an instant. The 4 dead disciples who were there were all gone, leaving only a white stone tablet stuck upside down on the ground. There are extremely complex patterns of various runes flowing on the stone tablet. "I'll do it." Agee took a step forward and struck with his cane. Immediately, the purple stream beneath his and Tu Ian's feet completely disappeared, and the black energy shot out by Garen automatically flew back for recovery. One more meal. The dense patterns on the stone tablet began to slowly rotate and accelerate. One last meal. Tisk tisk tisk. In an instant, the entire steel exploded, turning into 4 streaks of white gas that flew in all directions, and disappeared in the heavy rain in the blink of an eye. "It's done." Agee breathed out. There are special suppression tombs in the 4 directions to suppress the essence, blood, and core of a single dead apostle. As long as the medicine is replenished, they will not be able to wake up for thousands of years. "The paleness is still there," Tu Lan reminded. "With Lord Garen here, being pale has no meaning." Agee laughed. "Thanks to Mr. Garen for beating these 4 dead disciples to a severely injured state this time, otherwise we would not have solved the suppression so easily." "Forget it, let's go back." Garen showed no joy. He turned around and walked towards the heavy rain. The sound of engines gradually came from the distance. It was obvious that the troops from the Holy Fist Palace were rushing in. Agee and Tu Lan looked at each other, feeling a little weird. Defeating the vampires and completely suppressing them would be a great thing, but Galen looked completely uninterested. No matter what, Agee's heart was still filled with joy. The long-standing vengeance was avenged, and the knot in his heart was suddenly resolved, which made him feel indescribably happy. In just a few days, the battle between the Lightless Alliance and the Blood Alliance spread throughout the world to high-level officials in major countries on all continents. As the managers originally under the control of the Blood Alliance, the senior officials of the major countries saw the direction of the trend and turned to the Aluminum Alliance. For a time, under the attack of a large number of various propaganda, the Blood Tribe became a completely negative force. Some of the previous all other incidents were blamed on the vampires, in order to guide the unknown masses of ordinary people. A week later, the United Nations urgently issued an important epidemic plan for blood-sucking mania, classifying all vampires, including vampires, as having blood-sucking mania syndrome, and publicized the characteristics of people with this disease around the world. It also requires countries to carry out high-level quarantine to prevent patients from causing social unrest. According to the characteristics of the disease issued by the United Nations, the most important thing about blood-sucking mania syndrome is that the face turns pale, the eyes become red when angry, and the blood must be sucked every once in a while. It is a psychosomatic syndrome caused by mental problems and the assumption that one is a vampire. For a time, the Wuguang League of the Holy Fist Palace sent people everywhere to cooperate with the government in arresting vampire patients everywhere. The headquarters of the Blood Alliance was found by the Holy Fist Palace almost immediately. Tu Lan rode you to lead the team and killed some diehards, completely gathering a large number of the old blood clan of the Ming Party, and most of the radical secret parties were secretly executed. The world's situation is becoming more and more stable. Standing on the top floor of a tall building, the night breeze blew Garen's hair back. He was holding a cup of freshly brewed green tea, which was still steaming, and stood on the edge of the fence, overlooking the entire Washington night scene. The U.S. Capitol building in the distance looks like an upside-down half-cut cucumber, giving people an inexplicable sense of joy. Under the sweeping lights at night, the entire Parliament building was a white gold color. There are densely packed buildings with tiny light spots all around the building, like fine sand in the desert. It's hard to count how many lights there are: red, yellow, white, blue and other colorful lights intertwined together, with more or less in the middle. Few black shadows. Between the high-rise buildings in the city, you can vaguely see the traffic flow like a golden river, flowing slowly and steadily, as if it is the blood of the entire city. Garin took a sip of green tea with sugar and looked at the huge city below. "What are your plans for the future?" he asked in a low voice, using very standard Spanish. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 761. "What are your plans?" a man behind him repeated in a low voice. "I am living very well in Spain now. I have found a school to teach children." On the dark rooftop, a slender man suddenly stepped out of the shadows. The man was dressed in white, with white hair, and even his skin had a translucent white color. His eyes were filled with an indescribable relief. It was completely different from when Garin first met him. "This is different from the pale one I saw before," Garin said lightly. "I like this kind of life very much now. There is no fighting, no intrigues, it is very ordinary." Pale seems to have become much brighter. "It's really unexpected." Garin turned around. The strongest vampire in the world would actually become a teacher in a human school. He looked at the strongest vampire in front of him, Costini, who suddenly invited him to come here, and thought of it. "Information, I also have some indescribable feelings in my heart." "Are Lisa and Ishiro okay?" he asked in a low voice. "Very good. The wedding between Ishiro and I will be held in a while. You must come to our wedding then." Costini smiled. Although he still looked weak, he gave people a kind of the illusion of clarity. Garin felt a little emotional. Not long ago, he learned that Acero was getting married, and the person he was marrying turned out to be the pale Costini of the vampire clan. When he met his parents, he almost overturned the table at the family banquet. Later, it was learned that Baiwan was seriously injured after the first battle with him, and was found by Ishiro while he was recuperating, hoping to take out the Red Moon holy law hidden deep in their consciousness. Perhaps a lot of things happened between the two. It seems that Honggyo and Hongyu also appeared, thinking that the Ishiro sisters were from Garin's side, and wanted to kill them, but were saved by Wan. I don't know why the two actually fell in love. Garin now understood why the El Saro sisters always gave him an inexplicable feeling, and now he had indeed verified this feeling. Because of the Red Moon holy law, he actually got close to the first dead apostle. This marriage is indeed something no one expected, and it may be another long story. I don't want to worry about these things anymore. Isn't your Holy Fist Palace managed very well? With Tulan here, the vampires also have a place, and the world has returned to peace." Costini smiled, and seemed to really let go. "I just want to live a normal life, as an ordinary person." "Do you know their movements?" Garin suddenly asked confusedly. Costini was stunned for a moment, and then the smile on his face faded. "I don't want to take care of it, and I can't. Besides, with you here, no one dares to touch the overall situation, right?" "I'm leaving," Garin interrupted. The two fell silent for a moment. Only the wind was blowing on the roof, bringing with it chills. People are always dissatisfied. With power, they want to ask for more. After all, Garin said lightly, in order to pursue immortality, sooner or later they will set their sights on you. The Palace of Holy Fists has now become the #1 force, and many of its top leaders are powerful people who originally held high positions, such as the Sith, such as the current Quinton, Sidon, and many senior leaders of the fighting club who joined later. King-level boxing indeed has the effect of extending life, but how can it compare with the immortality that the vampires are blessed with? The battle has just ended. If Garen hadn't suppressed it with his absolutely domineering wrist, I'm afraid many people would have tried to use violence. Studying the immortality of the vampires, some people will definitely be keenly interested in the mystery of the immortality of the dead apostles. Among the only remaining dead apostles, Tulan occupies a high position and no one dares to touch him. However, Costini is different. He is alone and has a weak personality. As long as he seizes his important people and threatens them, he is afraid that he will not behave. Submit. Isn't this how the secret party succeeded in the sneak attack? Human desires are endless. The peaceful life that Baiwan wanted was just a dream after all. You want to leave? Costini was silent for a moment. Where are you going? I'm afraid I'll never come back, Garen replied calmly. Recently, the rejection he felt from the planet was getting heavier and stronger. No matter how powerful he was only an individual. Even Nadia couldn't fight as an individual. Planet, let alone him. Faced with this kind of rejection, he could only hold on for a few days at most. So what do you want? Costini looked at the young man in front of him, who was said to be only in his 20s, and suddenly felt that the other person's mind was far beyond that of his 20s. Originally I planned to pass on the position of Holy Fist to you, but now it seems that it is impossible, Garen said calmly. He had this idea when he learned that Costini turned out to be Aishiro's husband. After all, he is the strongest, sitting on the top throne, and can suppress all vampires and humans, but now it seems that he has become discouraged and wants to retire. Come to the Holy Fist Palace and serve as the deputy palace master. I will pass the position of Holy Fist to Tulan, only the two of them are the most suitable. They are both people with no ambitions. They can suppress the Lightless Alliance even if they sit on the first throne. AG thoughts? Especially since he is about to recycle all the soul guides, and by then the Holy Fist Palace will no longer have substantial constraints, which requires a strong force to unite everything. I will consider it. Costini lowered his head and thought for a while, then nodded slightly. Aishiro and Arisa have lost their parents and are almost like the same family as Garen's family. Aishiro's martial arts relies entirely on Garen's original skills. Otherwise, it would be difficult to survive. A series of relationships have made the two parties extremely close. Just like a family. Under this relationship, there was no need for Garen to harm him. Garen had a premonition that after he left, perhaps the whole world would fall into a whirlpool again. The immortality of the vampires and the absolute immortality of the dead apostles were the source of all turmoil. On the surface, the situation in the Holy Fist Palace is stable, but in fact it was suppressed by his strong hand. Once his suppression is gone, the thoughts of all the forces will immediately change. But these are none of his business. What he only cares about is arranging for his relatives. As the most loyal students under the Holy Fist Palace, Ningru Oxy and Sidon Quenting are reliable people. Absolutely no problem. With this group of people gathered together, even if Tulan had other thoughts, he would not act rashly. But there are no absolutes in the world, and no matter how perfect and safe the insurance is, there will be times when it is broken. Garen knew very well that once he left, no one in this world would surpass the height of the vampire dead apostles. After all, Baiwan was the first person in the vampire clan, no one else. After all, no one has soul seeds, and no one has attribute talents. Even the immortal vampires will not be able to reach the highest height because of the insufficient height of the secret weapon. Jialong sighed in his heart. After all, he did not choose to keep the real top secret martial arts. Except for the Huanlu Fist, whether it was the original Water Bird Fist, the Shadow secret martial arts, or the Baiun secret martial arts, the height of these secret martial arts was only mentioned by others. The first class level after the blessing of his soul guide, the main strength lies in fighting and fighting, rather than practicing improvement and evolution. Dam and Hoseman are so powerful because of their soul attractors. Once the introduction is withdrawn, the combat power will also drop a bit. At the same time, the biggest impact is on the speed of practice, which will drop significantly. The very rapid improvement in the past is also because they have no worries about the sequelae of their practice because they have the burden of the soul introduction. Once it is withdrawn, it is equivalent to them bearing the consequences themselves. It will completely show the cruelty of magic power. The practice is fast and the power is strong, but if you are not careful, you will die even faster. With his thoughts reaching this point, Garen felt how much impact his departure would have on the entire Holy Fist Palace. Aren't you afraid that the vampires will become unstoppable by practicing secret martial arts? Costini asked. The most powerful vampires who practice secret martial arts cannot reach your level. After all, secret martial arts are designed for human beings to practice. They can no longer improve when they reach a certain bottleneck because the structure is different. Garen shook his head. He glanced at Costini and said, if it's unstoppable, just retreat. This sentence came out of nowhere, and Castan didn't understand it, but the look on Garen's face when he said it made him involuntarily remember the sentence deeply in his mind, making him almost unable to forget it. Holy Fist Palace. The huge palace on the top of the snow-capped mountains, coupled with the white sea of clouds below, seems to be standing in the clouds, giving people an ethereal feeling like a fairy palace. The mountain road up the mountain is full of people, including those visiting, studying, communicating, as well as the palace staff's logistics and other teams. They almost form several long queues, connecting to the Holy Fist Palace from all directions. Like a stream flowing into the sea. People were coming and going in the palace, and Garen was holding an internal meeting. External affairs were mainly handled by Tulan. At this point, the entire organization of the Holy Fist Palace has reached a very bloated stage. The Fighting Club, Nighthawk's power expanding more and more. You guys go and have a rest. I want to walk around alone. Raphael walked on a corridor in the palace and said calmly to the two girls taking care of him. Okay, if anything happens, please contact us through the buzzer. The two girls were happy to rest and relax, and quickly left with a smile. Raphael watched them gradually disappear around the corner behind the corridor. He felt slightly relieved and walked towards the place he had remembered earlier. Ever since the news of the defeat of the Blood Alliance came, Raphael had truly understood for the first time how powerful the Holy Fist Palace was. It is said that Fist Saint Garen defeated the 4 dead disciples by himself at that time, and he was as unbeatable as a demon. This huge gap made Raphael finally understand what her mother had been talking about the source of trouble. In just 20 years, it has surpassed the thousands of years of accumulation of the vampire dead apostles. This is an existence that should not exist, and an existence that violates the rules of heaven and earth. It is simply a tumor that disrupts the balance of natural circulation. However, according to his mother's prophecy, the Galen Fist Saint, known as the world's strongest, still has a fatal weakness. In other words, according to the prophecy, this weakness is also the weakness of the entire Holy Fist Palace. As long as that weakness is broken, Garen's martial arts foundation will be destroyed directly, and it will also destroy the martial arts foundation of the entire Holy Fist Palace's top brass. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 762. Following the memory, Raphael quickly came to the secret room that he had visited once before. He opened the secret room with ease, walked in and closed the door behind him. Raphael walked directly to the bottom wall of the room. After rubbing the ring on her hand a few times, the ruby on it suddenly emitted a beam of red light like a laser, which hit the wall. As soon as the red laser landed on the wall, it reflected a white spot. Raphael was instantly happy when he saw it. The thing is indeed still there. He hasn't noticed it yet. She groped on the wall for a while, found the ring again, and pulled it out hard. Click. With a slight crisp sound, the wall was suddenly pulled out of a rectangular stone platform. There is a metal cylinder embedded in the middle of the platform. Raphael reached out and grabbed the ring of the cylinder. After pulling it, it was so heavy that it couldn't be pulled at all. She frowned and chanted in a low voice. My mother gave me courage, blessings, and strength. As soon as she finished speaking, a red light suddenly flashed on her hand, and with a gentle pull, she immediately lifted the entire column. There is a cavity in the middle of the cylinder, and there is a black shell notebook inside. For some reason, this notebook always gives people a strange and inexplicable feeling, as if the surrounding light is being continuously absorbed by it. Like a black hole. That's it. Raphael quickly picked it up with his fingers, took the notebook directly in his hand, and flipped through it. There were all kinds of unpredictable and tyrannical secret weapons in it. Her face suddenly became happy. He quickly took out a piece of red cardboard from his arms, with a large number of symbols densely engraved on it, and pressed the cardboard onto the notebook. Mora. She whispered the activation spell. Suddenly there was a bright red light, and the cardboard and notebook disappeared without a trace at the same time. Success, Raphael felt relieved. Pulling the column back again, she quickly left the secret room, looked around the corridor, and found that no one else found her, then walked calmly to another corner of the corridor. Shortly after she entered the corner, Garen's figure suddenly appeared at the door of the secret room. He quietly looked at the direction Raphael left without entering the secret room. Don't you have to deal with her? Tu Ian's figure slowly appeared behind Jia Long. It's too late. Garen shook his head slightly and looked back at Tu Lan. I might have to leave. Leave? Tu Lan was slightly stunned. Where to go? I don't know, Garen said softly. If I leave, will you be willing to protect the Holy Fist Palace for me? Tu Lan looked thoughtful, not in a perfunctory way, but thought about it seriously for more than 10 minutes, while Garen didn't look impatient at all, just waiting quietly. I think it will be difficult for me to persist for 100 years, Tu Lan said seriously after thinking. If it weren't for you, I would have left to practice secret martial arts by myself a long time ago. That feels much better than wasting time here all day long. You are honest. Garen shook his head and laughed. Only then did he remember that Tu Ian's true nature was to be lazy and have no desire to pursue, and just muddle along. I'm still thinking about you for 100 years. Tu Lan curled his lips and made a mischievous look that didn't fit his image. It's just 100 years to help you keep the family. She rolled her eyes. How about you take me away? Huh? Garen didn't expect her to say this. Why? It would be boring without you. With you, I always have a clear goal to catch up with. Tu Lan answered honestly. Garen was speechless and too lazy to pay attention to her. If he could take someone away, he would have already planned to do so. Moreover, this time was different from the last time. This time, he was actively rejected by the planet. The Holy Phoenix scripture is indeed powerful and can assist the Buddha Mother to strengthen a person. Level, reaching a terrifying state. To be fair, if it weren't for the strengthened Buddha Mother, he would be unlikely to be able to defeat Nadia. Later, the Buddha Mother was completely shattered and ruined, and Nadia's advent body was already on the verge of collapse. He then forced himself to fight in the 5-star state, and then he was able to win. Although these detailed calculations were all in his plan, the strengthening of the Buddha Mother did exceed his expectations. The combination of the Holy Phoenix scripture and the Buddha Mother caused the power to increase again. The world will be boring without you. As Garen left the corridor, Tu Lan shouted behind him. Who knows? Garen shrugged. A small island far away near the North Pole. The cold sea water constantly washes away the black reefs on the shore of the island. The entire island is bare of black stones, like an oval black pebble in the blue sea. In the blue sky, the sun's rays are cold and devoid of temperature, and the sparse white clouds are moving slowly like stairs. A few white and hairy seabirds occasionally flew by, and some plunged directly into the seawater, and then quickly flew out, with a sea fish of different sizes in their mouths. In a black stone forest somewhere on the island, a beautiful woman with long white hair was slowly squatting down and looking at something placed on a red stone slab on the ground. It was a notebook as dark as ink, thick, and the cover was like a vortex magnet, tightly attracting the attention of all living things. The long hair behind the woman with long white hair drags on the ground and is scattered around. If you look carefully, you don't know how long it is. The strands of long hair are tangled together, forming a pavement like a long skirt behind her. She gently picked up the notebook. "Is this the martial arts foundation of Fist Saint Garin?" she murmured in a low voice, gently wiping away a little dust scattered on the surface of the notebook. "As long as we destroy it and severely injure the boxing saint, we can get the world back on track," the woman murmured in a low voice, with a hint of determination in her eyes. She gently opened the notebook, and the contents immediately appeared in front of her eyes. It was a series of complicated and inexplicable strange words. These words seemed to contain some kind of magic, which attracted her eyes tightly to them, unable to extricate themselves. The martial arts content above seemed to open up a path forward for her that she had never imagined before. "This is this," the woman's expression changed slightly, and she wanted to push the notebook away, but her hands unconsciously grabbed it tightly to prevent it from leaving her sight. She suddenly had a hunch that if she could thoroughly learn the various martial arts above, perhaps she would embark on an unprecedented path of evolution based on her current situation. Suddenly, she felt an inexplicable gaze fall on her head. Satellite positioning, she frowned slightly, looked up at the sky, quickly put away her notebook, and disappeared directly into the black stone forest in a few jumps. The line of sight swept across the island, seemingly finding nothing, and then continued to sweep forward. CIA. Nothing has been found. Maybe our satellite network is not detailed enough in front of the huge blue screen, an old man with the rank of admiral whispered. He looked at the flashing red dots of the world map on the big screen, and turned to look at the young man in white on one side. "Thank you for your cooperation, but I have my own way of positioning." The man had blonde hair and one eye that turned slightly white. He seemed to be one-eyed. He was Garin, who came out of the Holy Fist Palace. "I need you to help me mobilize my manpower this time. I can lead the way to the Lion Mother's lair. Your Excellency, the boxing saint, actually has the means to track down completely missing items. It's really a magical martial arts." The old admiral showed a slight interest. "You can also try to practice if you are interested." "I will try," the old man nodded. He adjusted the headset on one side, and collective feedback from the outside world came from it. "The Fifth Fleet has been fully prepared, and you can go to sea with the ship. Fleet Commander Hunter is your fourth-generation disciple, and he practices Biun Mai Wu." "Thank you so much." Garin nodded, walked to the world map, stared at the blue fluorescent screen map, slowly stretched out his hand, and tapped lightly on a sea area near the North Pole. "It's here." "Are you sure it's there?" "There's nothing there on the chart, just an ocean." The admiral frowned slightly. "No, there is a small island here." Garin replied affirmatively. "Perhaps it's a matter of scale. Some islands are too small to be displayed on the chart. We can zoom in and take a look." The admiral didn't see any movement, but the blue chart on the big screen suddenly expanded, rapidly moving from the world map to zooming in towards that area of the sea. A black dot the size of a sesame seed appeared on the screen. "Huh," the admiral was slightly startled, "there is indeed an island." The big screen was enlarged again, and the black spot suddenly expanded rapidly, from sesame seeds to small apples, and then enlarged again, directly to the size of a basin. From time to time, wisps of white cloud slowly drifted by, covering part of the island land. Through satellite observation, you can barely see that the island is completely dark and stone terrain, with no woods and no green. "This is the biggest. There seems to be something interfering." The admiral frowned. "It's right here." Garin looked at the picture on the screen carefully, Notify the fleet and go directly to this island. Okay, codenamed Operation Lion Hunt, officially launched, the Admiral nodded and said solemnly. Garen looked at the black pebble island on the screen with a strange smile on his face. This time, I will give a copy of all the Lion Mother's knowledge and information on witchcraft to the Pentagon, and get back my things. Happy cooperation. Of course, it's a pleasure to cooperate. A trace of desire and excitement flashed in the Admiral's eyes. He is more interested in the more mysterious witchcraft than the Holy Fist. The mother of the lion is so powerful as a death apostle and is the king of witches in the world. Once this top-secret operation succeeds, she will obtain the death apostle level. The training materials of the Witch King are an unimaginable temptation for anyone. Therefore, when they learned that Garen was going to attack the Witch King, many forces gathered their strength, and finally formed a top-secret operation to directly mobilize the entire US fleet, using the exercise as a cover, to directly carry out the robbery and murder. As for the witches' subsequent counterattack, now even the powerful old secret party vampires have been wiped out. A large number of Ming party vampires have joined the Holy Fist Palace because of their paleness. You must know that the truly powerful force among the vampires is actually the Ming party. After all, they occupy the vampire party. Dominated for too long. Most of the vampires in the Ming party yearn for a peaceful human life, which is why they quickly join the Holy Fist Palace. In this way, the power of the entire Lightless Alliance is like a snowball, getting bigger and stronger. In comparison, the power of the witch is getting weaker and weaker, and is not worth mentioning. Under such a general trend, even if the witches counterattack, it will have no impact on the Sunless Alliance. After all, there are too few of them. Then I'll set off in person. Garen retracted his finger from the map. Good luck. I never believe in luck. Garen smiled, turned around and walked out of the command room. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 763. Half a day later. As evening approaches, the afternoon sunlight dims slightly. On the horizon around the Black Island, white steel battleships gradually appeared, with thick cannon muzzles aimed in the direction of the island. Groups of maritime fighters slowly took off, like bees in a hive, heading towards the island in clusters. The island flies. There are at least a dozen military satellites in the sky locating the sea area at the same time. Among the densely packed aircraft carrier fleet, the largest white aircraft carrier is like a white chipped wooden board, slowly stopping in the deep sea not far from the island, aiming at the Black Island in the distance. Surrounded by more than a dozen ships of various sizes, large and small, were densely packed. Garen, the captain, and several senior generals stood at the bow of the ship, looking at the Black Island from a distance. The afternoon sun fell on a few people, reflecting a faint halo on the white military uniforms. Behind them were carrier-based aircraft that were adjusting for ejection and takeoff. The roar of the fighter planes as they ejected brought up a lot of strong wind, causing several people's clothes to fly. Garen also wears a general-level military uniform. This is a special promotion rank awarded to him by Congress in a secret department to avoid being exposed during military exercises. Among the senior generals around him, Nighthawk's bald head and Tulan were both prominent. The reconnaissance plane has sent back a detailed terrain map. No ships have been found in the surrounding fleet patrol range, and not even a human figure can be seen, the captain reported to Garen in a low voice through the earphone. The rumble of fighter planes taking off made it impossible for them to hear what they were saying directly. Are you sure there are no people around? Garen frowned. No, there are no signs of human activity. The captain temporarily served as a signal soldier. He knew that Garen and others were not familiar with many aspects of the fleet and were complete laymen, so he simply came over to explain in person. Prepare for all-round bombing. Garen took the military binoculars handed over by the captain and carefully looked at the islands in the distance. The island is desolate, all jagged black rocks. Blow this island to the ground, Garen said calmly. Understood, the captain nodded. Start communicating instructions through the headset. Soon, the first ship in the front opened fire. Bang 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 bang. Amidst the roaring sound, a round of gun barrels shrank and shrank instantly, and white smoke continued to emit like piano keys. In an instant, all the more than 10 gun barrels on the ship exploded. Then other ships bombed and fired at the same time. Rounds of volleys shook the entire island. A large amount of smoke, dust, and gravel rose into the sky. The black stone forest stones on the island were instantly blown to pieces. The entire small island seemed like someone had used a big hammer. It was as if it was hammered down hard, and it was flattened every time. Every volley would explode and a large number of black stones would fly everywhere. Soon, a black smoke cloud completely enveloped the entire island. I don't know how long it took, but the island was directly bombarded and flattened half of its height. The island was filled with puffs of white smoke and dust. Go to the island, Garen waved his hand, and he immediately jumped up from the aircraft carrier and landed towards the sea. Small landing craft suddenly rushed out from below, just in time to catch him, and quickly headed towards the island. Tulan and Nighthawk also jumped off, were directly caught by the landing craft, and quickly headed towards the island. Except for the three of them, no one else came close to the island. This was Garen's order in advance, and those who were not strong enough would just die. The three landing craft quickly approached the island, quickly slowed down, and slowly slowed to a stop in front of a shallow sea area with a large number of reefs. Walk. Garen flew up, walked directly onto the sea, and quickly headed to the island, with the other two following closely behind. Tulan is naturally fine, but Bald Nighthawk is practicing the secret martial art of projection. After such a long time, he has naturally developed this skill in the Holy Fist Palace. The artillery fire stopped, and there were still planes circling in the sky, monitoring the intelligence below at any time and providing the latest information to the three of Galen. After a few splashes of water, Garen landed lightly on the edge of a flattened black stone crater and adjusted his headset. Always pay attention to what's going on around you, and notify me immediately if anything unusual happens. Understood, the headset responded quickly. Garen looked up and saw that almost all the parts of the island that blocked his view had been flattened. There were shell craters of various sizes everywhere, and it was a messy scene. Come out, Mother of Lions, I know you are here. He walked slowly towards the center of the island and directly transmitted the message loudly. The sound echoed slowly over the island, but no one responded. Garen's expression remained unchanged, and he and the two of them soon came to the edge of an inconspicuous crater and glanced around. Boom! He stepped down suddenly, and the rocks on the ground instantly exploded like explosives, and a huge deep pit appeared again, which was no less powerful than the cannonball just now. What was so powerful was that the gravel splashed out from the deep pit did not affect the two people on the side. The power of this kick instantly stunned the officers and soldiers in the fleet who had never seen the power of the Holy Fist Palace. It was like watching a science fiction movie. After Garen stepped out of the big pit, he gently fell to the bottom of the pit with the two of them, and stepped down hard again. Bang! This time, there was no more splashing gravel underground, but instead, a pitch-black hole instantly appeared under your feet. This is it. Garen's eyes moved slightly, knowing that he had found the right target. He immediately jumped into the black hole first. Nighthawk and Tulan followed without any hesitation. Below the black hole was an extremely dark and rugged tunnel. The three of them accelerated forward and soon discovered a faint light in front of them. It was a flickering blue light at the end of the tunnel. Quickly rushing into the light, there was a white hole glowing with blue fluorescence. A beautiful naked woman with incredibly long white hair was slowly standing on the flat ground inside the cave. She was holding a black notebook in her hand and seemed to be quietly waiting for the arrival of the three people. Mother of Lions, Garen was the first to step forward and asked in a low voice. Boxing Saint, the woman's eyes were calm. From the roar outside just now, I knew I had fallen into your trap. My hiding place was exposed. It's just pure information asymmetry, Garen said lightly. If you knew that my magic book could be located and sensed by me at any time, you would not have allowed your disciples to steal the magic book. Yes, the lion mother sighed. After much thought, this thing is the only reason. She looked down at the magic book in her hand, and her eyes shone with a slight inexplicable luster. I have tried to destroy it, but unfortunately no matter what I do, this book seems to turn into nothingness in an instant when faced with a devastating blow, and it cannot be destroyed at all. Whatever the reason. Now, I win. Garen slowly walked forward, and with every step he took, his body expanded a little, and the dark and rich energy in his body quickly spread from his feet like black smoke. Yes, you won. The Mother of Lions nodded. She raised her head, and strangely, her eyes slowly shed tears of blood. But, in order for the world to return to normal, even if my broken body falls into the abyss of nothingness forever, don't even think about it. The last voice suddenly burst out from calmness to a terrifying sharpness. In just the blink of an eye, a burgundy beam of light transcended sounds and movements, and seemed to be a real light, shining on Garen for an instant. The red light fell on Garen, and his body suddenly began to twist slightly. What is this? He was slightly startled. His body did not feel any pain. What was strange was that the magic book soul seeds in his mind were changing faster and faster. In an instant, the world's repulsive force expanded several times. Garen's face turned pale, and his whole body instantly shrank into his body. Only a layer of black shadow appeared on the surface of his body, like black armor directly protecting him. This layer of black armor was always resisting the repulsive force of the outside planet. The repulsive force has increased. This guy, Garen's eyes narrowed slightly. The red light of the Mother of Lions is continuously connected to Garen, like a laser that never stops. But her whole body melted quickly like a candle. As the red light continued to flow in, the repulsive force Galen experienced became stronger and stronger. Kill her. Garen couldn't move at all and just roared loudly. He can't leave yet, there are still many things to do. Before he shouted, Tulan and Bald Head shot straight out. A twisted stream of water turned into a huge ice spike, and Tulan smashed it with both hands at the tail. There was a loud bang, and ice spikes as thick as the waist flew out instantly and nailed the Mother of Lions hard, without any hindrance. Laugh. A big hole was directly penetrated into the body of the Mother of Lions. She wailed, her face melted into a human shape, and her body melted rapidly due to this blow. In just a few blinks, she completely turned into a pool of blood and lost human form, and the red light was suddenly interrupted. Bang bang bang. Garen took a few steps back, sweating slightly on his forehead. Fortunately, he brought Tulan and the others over as a precaution, and unexpectedly it worked. The Mother of Lions was actually able to sense the fact that he was being rejected from this planet, and used this phenomenon to try to hasten his departure. She's dead, Tulan couldn't believe it, and used the ice spike to hit the blood on the ground a few more times. She was really the Mother of Lions. Did she die so easily? She was originally prepared for a tough fight. After all, she was the mysterious Witch King in the history of witches. Did she expect that she would be solved so easily? She sacrificed all her vitality in exchange for the power to expel and repel me, Garen replied with a pale face. It can be said that when you hit her, she no longer had any power to protect herself. Safe. She just didn't make up her mind to survive. Both Tulan and Bald Head couldn't believe it. The long-famous Mother of Lions actually died so simply. Go and check this place. Garen leaned back in the cave and waved his hands to indicate that the two of them should ignore him. He was not injured, but simply tired from fighting against the repulsive force of the planet. The two people quickly dug out some things in the cave, including several ancient books, some bamboo flakes, stone flakes, and a large black crystal ball with the imprint of wings on it. "The mother of lions is proud enough to be able to cause me so much trouble," Garin replied, feeling that he might only have one day left to stay, and there was an indescribable feeling in his heart. A mere death apostle actually has such a special method. The opponent must also know that the attack method is useless against him, so he chose this method. Not seeking to kill him, but hastening his expulsion. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 764. Holy Fist Palace. Raphael was sitting quietly in her room, flipping through a thick tome casually in her hand. The evening sunlight fell in from the window and shone on her white legs, giving her a slight warmth. "I've obviously got that notebook, why hasn't anyone noticed it yet?" Her mind was spinning with other thoughts. Although her eyes fell on the book, she didn't pay any attention to what was on it. Suddenly she felt her chest feel hot, and she quickly pulled out a platinum necklace from her chest. A trace of blood appeared on the necklace. What's going on? Why did the warning necklace suddenly give a warning? She stood up suddenly, and the book fell to the ground with a pop. Quickly holding the necklace, she swiped her finger with the sharp edge of the necklace. A little blood seeped out from her fingertips, and she smeared the blood on the necklace. "Mother? What happened? Why does the necklace give an early warning?" she asked in a low voice. No respond. Raphael suddenly panicked. "Mother? What are you talking about? Mother? Don't bother." There was a bang, and the door was violently knocked open by an external force. A young and beautiful woman walked in with a group of strong students wearing holy martial arts uniforms. "Wizard Hongji, you are suspected of wantonly occupying other people's bodies and controlling other people's minds. In the name of the Holy Fist Palace, you are now arrested," the woman said with a cold expression. You guys," Raphael's face turned pale instantly. "Take away," the woman waved, and two female students immediately stepped forward and tried to hold down Raphael. "No," a sharp cry suddenly sounded. Raphael's face turned pale, his body retreated lightly, and he immediately flipped and jumped several times, and fell behind the sofa with a hiss. Seeking death, several after-images appeared in the figure of the beautiful woman in an instant. She pressed forward and punched out. Bang! The fist accurately hit Raphael's abdomen, knocking her down from mid-air. The woman casually pulled out a coil of rope, tied him up skillfully, and then slapped him on the back of the neck, knocking Raphael out immediately. Hongji, who is pretending to be Raphael, is actually just an ordinary witch who has just reached the middle level. In the state of using a body that is not her own, and facing a powerful master like Quentin who is close to the upper level, she undoubtedly has no resistance. "Take it away," Quentin said calmly, straightened up and turned to leave the room. Night. The small town at the foot of Holy Fist Palace. In a quiet small room, the room was dark with no lights on. Only the lights from other houses projected through the windows were faintly visible, leaving a few spots of light on the bed in the room. Garin stood motionless in the darkness, quietly looking at Raphael lying on the bed. Her blonde hair was scattered on the pillow, and she was sleeping quietly, lying on her side like a sleeping beauty, revealing a pair of white and delicate arms, and the white quilt completely covered her naked body. Listening to Raphael's steady breathing, Garin leaned against the wall, took a deep breath, and recalled in his mind the scenes that had happened in the short 20 years since he arrived in this world. "Let's talk when you wake up. Stop pretending," he whispered. Slowly, Raphael opened his eyes, but his body didn't move much, and he was still sleeping on his side. "What do you want to say?" she asked in a low voice. "I'm sorry," Garin said suddenly after being silent for a while. Neither of them spoke further, and the room fell into unspeakable silence. After a long time. "Why are you sorry?" Raphael broke the silence. "If it weren't for me, You wouldn't have been involved, Garen whispered. Forget it, have a good rest. He turned around and walked to the door, gently opening it. Go back to Grando. He opened the door and walked straight out. I closed the door with a click. I didn't know what I felt in my heart. I just felt a little regretful, but mostly calm. There was still silence in the room. Maybe Raphael didn't know how to express her feelings and could only choose silence. But both of them had a feeling that no matter what, it was impossible for them to be together. Perhaps Raphael had contacted his witch tribe before and learned about the death of the Mother of Lions. The witches and the Holy Fist Palace were destined to be in opposing camps. The decline of witches is inevitable after all, and it is the general trend of the world. With the loss of their only death apostle, all witches no longer have the biggest backstage barrier, and everything will completely turn into darkness. Garen is the biggest enemy of the main witch force. Such hostile parties cannot be together no matter what. After leaving the room, Garen walked slowly on the streets of the town. The grimoire in his mind had completely transformed into something like an oval bud. It looks colorful, shining like a rainbow. The flower buds are shaking slightly, and I don't know when they will bloom. Garen understood that once he opened up, it would be the time when he would truly leave this world. The planet's repulsive force has now reached a shocking level. As long as he relaxes a little, he will be directly kicked out by the repulsive force in an instant. But he still had things to do. Instead of taking back the soul guides, all the guides have been collected during the previous meeting. The decline in the strength of everyone in the Holy Fist Palace will not take effect immediately, but will slowly be revealed in the next few days. Along the street, Garen's steps seemed slow, but in fact, he covered a large distance in a few steps at an extremely fast speed. Soon he was back in town where his family was staying for the holidays. There were no lights inside the residence at this time. Garen paused slightly, then remembered that it was already spring and summer, and his parents should be on a lecture tour. As university professors and well-known experts, their work was also relatively busy during this time. As for the younger sister and the others, they were probably either going to play in Lesserty with Rhodes, or going to school. What a miscalculation, Garen smiled bitterly. I originally wanted to come back and take a last look at my family, but I didn't expect. He took out the key and opened the door. The living room inside was dark and there was no sound. Walking to the sofa and sitting down, Garen threw the keys aside and quietly enjoyed the last moments. Now even if he calls his sister's parents right away, it's already too late. Maybe in 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, he will leave this world. Sitting on the sofa, time passed by little by little. No one came to disturb him. Before Garen left, he told his subordinates not to disturb him. He left a letter to Tulan and the others, and he would make certain arrangements after leaving. He also left some gifts of his own to AG to ensure that after he left, the Dark Witch Coven represented by the Holy Fist Palace and AG Nizra in the Lightless Alliance could maintain balance. The Dark Witch Coven should no longer be called the Witch Coven. It was officially renamed the Shadow Council just 2 hours ago. AG summons all wizards, regardless of whether they are wizards or witches, as long as they have the strength to rise to power with their strength and establish the Wizards' Council. He wants to unify the entire wizarding world. There may still be a big meeting in the Witches' Hall now. Time passes minute by minute. Garen sat quietly on the sofa. He could already feel something was wrong with his body. It was caused by the chain reaction of the repulsive force of the planet, geomagnetic changes, and various radiation effects, all of which began to strongly repel and interfere with his entire being as an enemy. Perhaps like Hessas, it would be a good choice to leave quietly like this. Garen thought so in his mind. Teacher Garen. Suddenly a cautious voice came from the door. It's a girl, her voice is very clear. Garen raised his eyes and looked towards the door. Zixi. The girl standing at the door is Nengru Oxi. She was wearing white jeans and the holy martial arts uniform of the Holy Fist Palace. The women's martial arts uniform highlighted her slender waist. The jeans perfectly highlighted her slender legs and round buttocks. She had a cool, beautiful, and delicate face, fair and delicate. The skin gives people a mixed temperament of elegance, refinement, and a touch of sexiness. Zixi wore a black ponytail and looked in from the door with bright black eyes. Garen looked at the most talented female disciple he had ever seen in this world, and the loneliness in his heart was slightly diluted. "How did you come?" Ning Ruoxi's face turned slightly red and she turned her face slightly, not daring to look into Jia Long's eyes. "I recently came over to play chess with Sister Para. Para is a neighbor's family member who lives nearby and a close relative of the senior officials of the Holy Fist Palace." Feeling Jia Long's bright and dazzling gaze, Ning Ruoxi panicked slightly. She wanted to take a step back to avoid the sight, but her feet could not move at all. She would never say that her purpose was to come here every day to get acquainted with teacher Garen's family. In order to leave a good impression on the teacher's family. Most of the disciples and outsiders who have come into contact with Garen are afraid of him. They feel that he is mysterious, powerful, extraordinary, and too perfect to be human. Many people stayed away from him, and some girls liked to admire Garen, but they just regarded it as an unattainable dream, wondering how Garen could possibly like someone like him. But Ning Ruoxi understands that teacher Jialong is also a human being and needs company. "Come and sit." Garen smiled. "I didn't expect that you would be here to accompany me at this time. Destiny is always so strange sometimes." "What do you mean?" Zixi hesitated, gritted her teeth and walked directly into the room, closing the door gently. Suddenly the whole living room was dark, with only a little light coming from the window hanging from the outside of the room opposite. Garen made room for Zixi to sit on the sofa. Although they are in the dark, both of them are masters of secret martial arts and have keen senses. They can see in the dark without being affected. "What did you just say?" Ning Ruoxi keenly sensed something was wrong and asked. "Life always has ups and downs, divisions, and unions. You are still young, so you may not understand the true meaning, but you will understand it one day in the future." Garen smiled. "This is not just a simple talk." "Are you leaving?" Ning Ruoxi immediately guessed what Jia Long meant and her heart skipped a beat. "Is it a retreat?"